I was a different child. I can sense energy easily, and I learned to process information in silence. Most people do not need to speak to me for me to pick up on who they are. But how people express themselves piques my curiosity. There's big energy in our choice of words. As a boy, I can remember sitting in the living room with all my aunts and uncles, just listening to them carry on in conversation. We had 13 aunts and uncles in our family. Every one of them had an energetic signal, an emotional energy that they carried, which seemed to radiate throughout the room. Some were unassuming and peaceful, and others were strong and sharp. My Uncle Jimmy, who was originally from Oklahoma, would tell stories in his calm, soothing way. He worked for Ford Motor Company and told us how the assembly line was becoming more automated and people were losing their jobs. You could feel this man's compassion as soon as he walked in the room. My Aunt Ruth, she radiated a loving strength. One of her favorite sentences would use the word, "Bless your heart." It was the way she said it, which carried a strong, healing love with each word she said. Every person has their own emotional, energetic signature. Now myself, sitting in the back seat of our big old Buick LeSabre, riding to Grandma and Grandpa's house, I could not help but tear up when I heard some of these silly old 60s songs. I remember one by Bobby Goldsboro that really kind of sticks out. Something about planting a tree in the backyard. I'm sensitive and I accept that. I'm also determined, focused, and decisive. And we all have our emotional strengths. Even though I've experienced challenges and ugliness in my life, I chose to keep and maintain a perspective of beauty. I chose to keep a loving heart. It's my loving heart that has helped me heal my past challenges and made me what I am today. My demeanor was upsetting and worrisome to my military father. He may have wanted to, but he just didn't understand it. I could feel his growing uneasiness for my abilities, my intelligence, especially my sensitivity and compassion for people. I also felt he was a bit jealous of the connection I had with my mother. It was what he wanted, but he was falling short. There was a conflicting energy that was developing between my mom and dad. And it hung in the air of our home like a thick fog. Man, I could walk in there and I just wanted to open some windows and let it out. I sensed my dad's frustration and anger and my mom's disappointment and sadness. For good reason, I wanted to get away from it. I was a kid and kids like to have fun. So I had a blast getting together with my friends on the block. We took trips to the far edges of town on our bikes and explored Mother Nature together. I became good at outsmarting the critters, and I caught frogs and tadpoles and snakes, and I'd take them home to Mom, of course. She was really thrilled about that. One of my great loves was the game of baseball, and I joined a league in the neighborhood, showed up as my best self every day. I had the best batting average on the team. I practiced a lot. I hit the ball hard. This team was where I began my role of inspiring and inspiring and leading others. It was the month of July. The sun was shining bright and the weather was perfect. I invited two of my best buds over to play running bases in the backyard. I was a lanky 12-year-old with lots of dreams and plenty of ways to get there. It was a Saturday, and we set up two bases and started the game. And we each took turns being the runner and playing a base. I like to fake the run. As soon as they would throw the ball, I'd attempt to steal that base. The objective, of course, was to run from one base to the other and not get tagged out. It was exciting, it was challenging, and sometimes I actually pulled it off. After working up a good sweat, we took a break, and the three of us were just standing there talking about improving our baseball team. There were some younger kids playing beyond the fence in our backyard behind us, but we didn't really notice them. We were in our own little world. Myself and my teammates were laughing it up and talking strategy when one of them noticed the kids in the neighborhood yard had tossed a banana peel over the fence. He picked up the banana peel and tossed it back over the fence and asked the kids to throw it away. Like so many others, this scene is burned into my memory forever. It was such an awesome day. Baseball and good friends, the smell of those leather mitts, our homemade bases. The only thing missing was a hot dog with mustard and some fans in the stands. I stood there talking to both my teammates with my back to our garage. One of us had just been given a new bike for his birthday, and another one just got a new girlfriend, a new girl on the block. Then I could feel something very strong, dark, and rabid, and I didn't know what it was. I couldn't identify it. Still looking at my friends, I saw their smiles on their faces vanish. There was a horrific look on both of their faces, and this look of pure panic and fear. I was able to get out, what's wrong? What's going on? And all of a sudden I felt something grasp a fistful of my hair and yank me backwards. And it was my dad. He had been in the garage watching us, and we had no idea he was there. He had a hold of my hair and would not let go, so I had no choice but to follow his lead. I was barely able to keep my toes on the ground as I was dragged from the backyard toward the side door of our house. Holding on to me, he whipped open the screen door and threw me inside, and I landed on the kitchen floor and skidded in headfirst into the table, kitchen, and chairs. Geez, Dad, that hurt. I was completely shocked and confused and in disbelief. I was able to navigate my way out of the table and chairs and stand back up again. My thoughts were racing. We were just playing baseball, and now I'm here. What's this about? There's chaos in my head, and I was rapidly searching for answers, and I couldn't find any that made any sense. My dad was now taking his knuckles and beating on my head, his face completely contorted, his eyes were bulging out, red in the face. He blurted out, "I taught you better than that." His anger was intense, and as he kept using his knuckles, it's, "Hello, is anyone in there?" I could remember the feeling of inadequacy, the flush throughout my body of uncertainty, and the helplessness. Overpowered with fear, everything else seemed to be erased from my awareness. I kept my thoughts to myself, but I kept asking, "You're teaching me? What are you teaching me? What is the meaning of this? What are you so angry about?" It took a while, but the banging on my head stopped. And yes, I was still terrified. I kept trying to understand why this man who loved his son was so angry and what I had done to disappoint him. Throughout my childhood, there was a repeating pattern. Every time I'm having fun, something ugly came from it. Out with my aunt in her new convertible, my paper route didn't get addressed on time. They're sitting there in the house. I come home to rage. Playing cards with several friends on the deck. And woohoo, Mike's winning. Mike's having a blast. And my dad interrupts. Your sister wants to go home, take her home. I can remember at one point being criticized for how I ate my apple. I would just shake my head. Now enjoying an apple is a problem. With time, my mind created an agenda, a recurring state of mind, a conditioned way of feeling and perceiving my world. Was there some inexplainable flaw with me? I just didn't see it? No, none of this was about me. I did not have a strong guiding voice in my life. So having this experience, I spent several years unsure of myself, not knowing how I should act, how to begin my own life, how to become successful. I spent time unconsciously doubting my next steps. Of course, none of what my mind had made up from these events was even true. Just as my mother and father had done, I had my moments of sadness and anger. My father had learned to feel he was flawed in some way. His anger, his resentment, and his reaction kept him distant from the love he really sought from life and from the people that he knew. This was present in my grandfather and his father before him. The pattern of the parent is transferred to the child. It might be easier to just stay upset, to be angry with my experiences and blame and judge and condemn. But what will my children learn? To make the choice to see the negative events of my life with love, acknowledge there's a purpose in each one of them is the key. Making the choice to stop reacting and reveal that energy that I hold within that recreates these events in my life has drastically changed the outcomes in every way. When I choose to release the emotional energy, I awaken to the power within. It is then that I become the generational curse breaker. Because I will no longer carry that anger, that sadness, or that resentment in my energy. I no longer experience this in my world. It fades away. Thank you, Dad, for the crazy fishing trips, for the pinochle games, and teaching me how to be a generational curse breaker. I love you, Dad.
Yeah.